Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, a show that examines all aspects of sexuality, from physical to emotional to spiritual. Join our hosts as they discuss age-old questions, common misconceptions, and the latest topics surrounding sex. They'll tackle topics about sexuality from the complicated to the hilarious and everything in between. GSMC Sex Podcast is your show for all of your questions about sex, even some you might not have thought of yet.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Andra, where the topic about sex is from the point of view of an older woman. Now, how have you all been out there? Hi, honey little devils. We are going to discuss today sexual inadequacy. We generally always associate sexual inadequacies, blaming it on the other person. And generally, it's a male that we do it to. That's not always the case. So we're going to talk about that this show. Now, just a brief definition of sexual inadequacies. I'm assured you already know what that is. However, I'm just still going to give you that lovely definition that everybody wants to just hear. I know you do. It just means having an issue that can negatively affect the satisfaction of an individual or a couple before, during, or after sexual activity. Sexual inadequacy includes lack of sexual desire. Ooh, we don't want that. Lack of ability of physical arousal required for sexual activity. Delayed or absence of orgasm. And pain disorders are all wrapped up in lovely sexual inadequacy. Sexual inadequacies can happen at any point in time to anyone, not just a man, not just a woman, which we always love to point the finger at. But when it comes into our relationships, well, we have the tendency to point the finger. It affects our relationships really badly if you do not get the help that you so need to get by it. Whether it's physical or psychological, it still needs to be addressed. Doesn't matter who it is, because it happens to both. Obviously, there is a social stigma that comes when it's it's on the male side of that inadequacy, and we do not want that. That feeling of not being able to satisfy your partner or even yourself in sexual intercourse. And that really puts a lot of tension on the relationship. It is a sensitive topic to talk about, but it is one that, if needs to be addressed, do address it. Now you could ask yourself these questions, or you generally, when it comes to sexual inadequacies. who is prone to be affected? Well, both of you. It can, sexual inadequacies or dysfunction, whatever, how you want to approach it, and whatever name you want to give it is your choice. It does attack at any age or sex, although it has been found to be more common in people over the age of 40 to experience some issues with their sexual performance in the bedroom, who are older or actually quite young. So we might be turning the times on that one. It also, they're also where medications that you're taking, obviously as you get older and you're not taking any, kudos to you. However, for the majority of population, at one point in time, you will be taking a medication as you get older. And that medication might just be the cause of that inadequacy. They are out there. I know that blood pressure pills have a tendency to do it. Also, medications for depression and things along that line, mental health, have a tendency to go in and all of a sudden give you some sort of issue in the bedroom. So some people will stop taking their medications, which is not a good thing, especially with men. Men feel because the medicine won't let them get erect and get it up for their partner, so they'll stop taking it, which is probably worse because you are endangering your life. And with that, sexual inadequacy may not ever have to be a problem anymore. Because if you're not here, it's not a problem. You gotta look at it that way. There are ways around it to get a hard-on and get erect or whatever. Talk to your doctor so your doctor could give you something that you could use before you run out to use Viagra, because Viagra has caused problems in some areas. Other than that, I'm sure that it's working for the majority of the population who is taking it. But there are those wounds that can be did, and you don't want that. Which brings you sexual and erectile dysfunction. And this is really one of the most common, or considered the most common, male sexual problem, believe it or not. It nearly affects over 140 million men worldwide. There are lots of reasons as to why at one point in time erectile dysfunction becomes a problem. It also is a source of a lot of stress in a relationship. It is also viewed like if you can't get an erection, your partner begins to feel as though they cannot turn you on anymore, or they're not attractive, or you don't really care to be with them, and that's not what it is. There are many pills or medications out there that actually will help with that. Please seek help. There's a new chewable out. Don't know the name of it, but there is one out there. And, what gets encompassed with all of this when a man has erectile dysfunction and now is, all the stress is coming in and everything else, what comes along with it because they feel that they cannot perform in the bedroom instead of going to the doctor and finding out. A lot of anxiety comes into play. It's really caused by overthinking the issue. If you get in there and you get help, it is treatable. Another way in which their sexual inadequacies are can affect the relationship is through lack of attention. That lack of attention from your partner will also come, it kind of feeds into that sexual inadequacy. It's where, you have to ask yourself, what makes someone sexually adequate or not? It's just really, if you break it down, how well can you satisfy your partner in the bed? It doesn't really have to do with the stamina, the shape, or any other physical features. It just is what it is. There are different things that occur. It is, it plays a role, the physical features play a role in that casual sexual encounter, or occurrences, shall I call them. Although not really important in a long-term relationship, because you are in that relationship already. But casually, that lack of attention becomes very, very, it gets viewed in the wrong way, where it makes you feel that you are, that person that's getting that feeling is sexually inadequate to satisfy their object of desire sexually. And that's not helpful. I mean, when you give attention, like looking forward to really getting your partner off and getting them that, a major orgasm, it may just be the only way in which, it makes sexual activity pleasurable for both of you. But it is where sexual inadequacies step in, shall I say. It can be caused by just ignoring those particular little things that your partner, or the preferences that they like, or what they, listening to them during sex, in that sexual act. It's not a joke, although at times it is joked upon, and it shouldn't, because you don't know how this person is thinking or what is going to happen in their thought process. Men take it very serious. I think women do as they get older, or, they start to wonder, okay, what's going on? But I don't think they give it as much thought as a man does. So, with sexual inadequacies, sometimes we blame it on something else that's happening. Yes, not even PMS, menopause. And it's the biggest joke going out there is you take that word and you break it down. Pause. So we'll put men on pause. And it's the best way that can be explained. It's the funnest way, but that's how it is. With the topic of sexual inadequacy, this is a very difficult, sensitive topic of your sex life. You don't ever want to have that. So if you feel that you can't satisfy your partner's needs because of something going on with you, get it checked out. But do communicate with your partner, because, they need to know what's going on, at least how you feel, so that they can be there for you and support you and just be all around that particular good support system for you. It's not an easy thing, especially with guys, because guys are focused on their third leg, their penis, their genitals. They are focused on that and how they are going to satisfy, if not already in a relationship, someone they're looking to get into a relationship, and how well they can do it. And they got to talk themselves up. Nowadays you get a woman who's going to turn around and do the same thing to you. So I would be pretty, don't be bragging too much. Because if you do have some form of sexual inadequacy, and then you get into the bedroom with that person, you don't want to find out in the middle of it. So you're all into foreplay, you're all cuddling up and everything and getting turned on, then all of a sudden when it's time to do the dirty deed is not getting did without a penis, because it will not get erect. Same on the opposite side. A woman won't get wet, or she's just really not getting turned on by you. So, something to think about. And when you do think about this, we're going to take a break. So get a snack, get a drink, come back, get relaxed. And I will meet you back here for more sex talk with Andra.
Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Thank you for listening into the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Andra, where the topic about sex is from the point of view of an older woman. Now, welcome back on our subject of sexual inadequacies. And in the last segment, we're talking about things that could probably be the affecting or effecting thing that would, make this happen or have this happen. And there are ways to work through it. Sexual inadequacies is not something to laugh at with your partner, unless, of course, it's your partner's joking about it and brought it up and all that good stuff. But sexual inadequacies for any partner can be very embarrassing to them. It might not be for you, and you're loving them for who they are and what they have and everything else, but that's not how they're seeing it. Those who experience sexual inadequacies have a tendency to blame themselves. Don't stop. It's not your fault. Something may be happening. Hey, that's about it. We as youngsters get sex education, but it teaches you how to not be pregnant, to prevent pregnancies, and to avoid sexually transmitted diseases, as they call them now, infections. And it's not, they don't tell you about what exactly sex is, or, that pleasure of sex. People ask, especially where it is that some women who cannot achieve an orgasm through penetrative sex, when you're right in the act of it, it's usually more either before or after, and then feeling as though they have to fake, that orgasm sound like when Harry met Sally. And we all remember the famous scene with Meg Ryan. That's what this is here. Just to make, their partner feel that much better, or feel that they have succeeded at giving that ultimate orgasm. Don't ever sell yourself short. It might just be the way that it works for you. Don't think that you have to fake it, because you don't. There's so many things out there right now. They even have videos on YouTube regarding this. Ways in which to have that orgasm during penetrative sex. It's just something. That foreplay for everybody affects each other differently. It's supposed to help both of you, but sometimes, it gets one person off, your partner off, before it gets you off. They don't want to hurt your feelings, so they fake and just make the sounds of having an orgasm when you're in the middle of the sexual act. They want to make sure that you are pleased. These questions come up. And that was one of the questions that a bunch of authors had come out and was talking about this. And that was one of the questions that was asked. It is weird to think about it, but what we do is we reach out to porn and watching the porn. Now, porn is like the Barbie for sex. Barbie is a 36, 24, 36 perfect woman that puts standards of how women are supposed to look. And they're unachievable goals at most time, because every woman is different. Well, porn does basically the same thing. You get up there and they let you see the perfect sexual act with that woman or partner, shall I say, that is giving everything you need. And then, supposedly they're playing a role there. So remember that is not, it's just basically there to help you and aid with you. That's what it is. It's an aid. And knowing that and being able to distinguish between the two is what is going to happen. Yeah, can you play that same role that they're playing in there? Absolutely. You make it out the way you want it, not through somebody else. It's sad because porn in most places have become, on more than one instance, has become a sex educator, tongue-tied, a sex educator for most individuals. They're hardcore images that give you unrealistic expectation. Most people forget that porn is just that fantasy. And it is performed by professionals, so they're coaxed and coached before even going out there. They are propped and primed to do that. And they probably take a Viagra. The men probably take a Viagra to stay up that long. They're not, they're imagining their partners at home if they have it, or they're imagining something else but being there in order to get through and do the scene. Think about it. These people are professionals. Their bodies have that unrealistic porn star look. So, think about it. They have their vaginas, some of the women on there might just have the vaginas altered surgically so that they look absolutely perfect to what society feels, or some people, especially the other partners, think that vaginas are supposed to look like. Vaginas come in so many different shapes and sizes. It's unreal. Same thing with the males. Males in porn movies have enormously large dongs, penises, whatever you want to call it, and where their erection lasts forever. Well, they're probably popping a few Viagras in there, or popping something that's going to keep them up, because that's not what happens in real life. They're just setting a stage for you to explore a fantasy. It happens. Some people use porn as part of their sex act. That is fine. Part of their foreplay. Perfectly fine. Perfectly normal. Keep doing it. You can't miss anything. There are other questions that are asked where how much sex is normal. There isn't a realistic, shall I say, answer to that. Yes, there are instances where people have just crave sex all the time. Every minute of the day, there is a disorder for that. But then it's what is it? That person who doesn't have it, but just like sex. It is there's ways of looking at it. When you first meet somebody, you want to constantly have sex with them. What it does is, believe it or not, when you're doing that, it's just basically cementing your place in their life. Because you get a lot of sex in the beginning, because you're courting, and you want to impress this person, you want that person to stay, and sex binds, or builds a bond between two people. It's the intimacy that comes from it as well. So it fluctuates. But once you know that that person is hooked and is going to be with you, don't know how long, but hey, maybe they're going to stay until the end of time with you. Kudos. But there are different levels. You are going to, in the beginning, constantly have sex because you're cementing in your relationship. Sex is going to slow down because let's face it, you already reeled that person in and you've already won them over. That's not to say if you want to have, as time goes on, you are very sexually active, the both of you. Sex is not going to be a problem for you. Sexual inadequacy probably won't be a problem for you. It happens. I mean, at one point in time, make sure that that communication is open, and with that communication, change can work in your relationship, whereas you grow that sexual desire and everything else. Sexual inadequacies happen to everyone. Not if they don't tell you, then they're lying. We sometimes take scenes from somewhere and put it into our life to play out. Porn being one of those. They that you and your partner want to, or just your partner, or just you, after watching porn, want to be that porn star, or mimic them, or, because you admire them, you want to behave and look like them because you think that this is how, you're going to be able to hold an erection. This is how you're going to become continually wet and lubricated. No, that's not really what it is. They're acting out a fantasy scene. No one knows what goes on behind the stages. And 10 to 1, they go limp. Just like whatever. I'm assured on scene, on stage, you have not seen, or what they don't show you is they probably have gone down or had a difficult time getting an erection, or a difficult time getting wet. It is a job. And with all jobs, you either like them or you don't. Or if you do like them, it's always going to have a downside to it. And from time to time, it's going to wear on you. It is what it is. Now, really, if you think that watching porn is going to improve your sex life, go about your business thinking it. It's an unreachable thought, but that is fine. The average time that a man, it was just, both the men and their partners actually, when it comes for an erection and time in between, like having that first ejaculation, then you go down and then coming back. It is between 3 and 6 minutes, and that's the norm. So don't ever think, that first time you have sex, it's usually a quickie. It is usually a quickie unless you're getting it every day. And you've honed in on your skills, shall I say. Because for the most part, you haven't had sex every day of the week. So your body is, rearing up. It's horny. It wants to act out that. And when you get in there to go and do that sexual act, boom. It's like over in a minute. But you can regain yourself and then do it again, which lasts much longer. But if, sometimes just sitting back and thinking about what's going on with sexual, and not thinking you are sexually inadequate, because you're not. It's just something normal. We, as individuals, our bodies do not react at the same time. I mean, our libidos are not synced, although there's probably some people out there who think that they are. People have mismatched libidos. Believe it or not, if you find this is a major problem, please seek out sex therapy counseling, because it seems to be one of the things that works with that and can help you overcome it. With that being said, and my last note for this portion of the show, we are going to take a break here. So replenish your drink, replenish your snack, come back, get relaxed, and I will meet you back here to continue our talk on sexual inadequacies. So, I will be back with more sex talk with Andra.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Andra, where the topic about sex is from the point of view of an older woman. Now, our discussion this session has been about sexual inadequacies. Now, sexual inadequacies, generally, people kind of sort of make them synonymous with sexual dysfunctions. There is a difference. Sexual inadequacies are where you just basically cannot perform. It might be you're not turned on. It might be this isn't what you want to do. It might be that you've put up such a huge thing and built yourself up regarding how sex was going to be, and it didn't turn out the way you were. You got in there and you couldn't perform. Some people dream about having a sex with one particular type of person. They find that person, they're with them, they're in, they're sitting and, they're in the midst of foreplay and getting all excited, and they go in for the almighty penetration, and boom. Mr. Penis doesn't want to work. Mrs. Vagina isn't exactly overly thrilled by the whole thing. So, is it inadequacy? You stress yourself out on things. You overthink things. There may not be something wrong, but if it happens more than once, you need to start communicating and figure it out because something is going on. Now, if we're going to go on to the sexual dysfunction side of that, that means there is actually something wrong, and it is more common of a problem among both men and women. It can be caused by physical problems or medical conditions or the two together. It could just be something that has to do with your hormones, and that's something small. At the end of the show, I am going to finish out with our last segment on solo sex and masturbation and ways in which to do it correctly. So maybe that is just something that you need to do to work yourself out of this sexual inadequacy. Sexual dysfunction, a little bit more intense. I mean, it's also got psychological problems that are involved, like anxiety, depressions, affects, post-traumatic stress affects it, medication affects it. These are what you need to look at. There are different kinds of sexual dysfunctions which run in both men and women. There is something called desire disorder. This particular type of disorder affects sexual desire and interest in sex. They're also known as libido disorders or low libido. Low estrogen and testosterone levels generally cause this, so you might want to get your levels checked by your doctor, because there are some medical conditions that actually deplete your hormones, and one of them, maybe off the top, is diabetes, which we all know affects more parts of us than usually for those of you who have it. Also your heart, anything that has to do with heart disease, blood flow, very important. But then you get down to the everyday issues that come along with it, your relationship problems, your sexual inhibitions, fatigue, fear, depression, anxiety. There's a lot of them that go into that desire disorder, which then turns around, and there are those individuals who suffer from arousal disorders. This particular area of disorders makes it difficult or impossible to become physically aroused during sexual activity, which gets misconstrued as sexual dysfunction. Sexual inadequacy. And it's not. It's you have an issue. Get it checked out. It does occur in both men and women. And obviously the most common in men is erectile dysfunction. When we get aroused, it's not saying that you're not interested in sexual activity, but more of the fact that you are unable to get any physical satisfaction from it. So then we look into our orgasm disorders that comes along. Ooh, I said that bad word, orgasm and disorders together. And this is where there's an absence of an orgasm or a delayed orgasm. And those are generally the most common and generally in women. But they do occur in men. And with this particular disorder, there's a level of pain, or this can become a problem due to experiencing pain during sexual activity, the stress, the fatigue, the hormonal changes, and reduced libido basically have a big helping hand in orgasm disorder. Now we're going to pain disorders, which obviously if you have pain during sex, it affects both you and your partner. And this can go either way, men or women. It doesn't have to be one over the other. But for women, the biggest cause of this pain is vaginal dryness, which is vaginismus. Vaginismus. I really am so totally amazed on how they make up these names. And this is really like a condition that is actually affecting the muscles of the vagina. Believe it or not. UTIs, urinary tract infections, hormonal changes during menopause, and there it is again, menopause. There are other conditions out there, but those are the top ones that have been proven in more times than not. With men, pain can be caused by Peyronie's disease, and that's where there's physical damage to the penis. Also, you men as well as women will get UTIs, urinary tract infections, which is uncomfortable. Prostate and yeast infections, you are also prone to those. There is genital herpes and other skin conditions that come along with that. You really need to talk to your doctor, because these are things that are going to make a difference in your sex life. And if sex is as important to you as you believe it to be, then you want to get these checked out, because that is the only way for it to be taken care of or addressed medically. Sexual inadequacies and sexual dysfunctions have been kind of sort of blanketed together, when really it is the sexual inadequacies is you can't perform. You've been watching way too much porn, and you've got this preconceived notion how sex should be. So you go in with that, believing that your sex is going to be that way. No, that's not what it is. That's one instance. There's one where you were stressed, you get stressed all week long, and you get in there and you can't even get it up, or your partner has vaginal dryness, and everything you do to try and help is not helping. These are disappointing because sexual inadequacies will really put a damper on your sex life. It will have you where you don't really want to have sex because you already have it in your mind, I'm not going to perform. You can't do that. I mean, if it's continually happening, you may need to lean towards that sexual dysfunction and those disorders that come in, and talk with the doctor, the both of you, so you have an understanding of what is happening in your sex life. It happens. Our bodies change, or it's a medication that we have to take now. These things do happen. They are out of your control. It is what you do to get it back into your control. don't go by the porn. Yeah, porn is good in foreplay and probably trying to act out what they're acting out, but they are professionals on there, and they're doing what it takes behind the scenes to make it look that good and that easy for that man to keep an erection, or that easy where the woman can squirt all over the place. Oh, she's got this seriously wet vagina all the time. They're thinking about different things when out there. They're not thinking about the person they're with, and they've got to really maintain it. And I'm assured it's quite hard at times. But some people will idolize it. Porn is just a sex toy, just like a dildo. It's to get you in the mood. You can idolize a porn star. Go for it. 10 to 1 if you met that person in real life, your thoughts would be completely different about that person. Hasn't changed much that she is a porn star. It's just, it's not as you think it. I'm sure there are several stories that can be told to those, or about what's going on in those scenes. If you really want to take porn to a different level with your partner, and you think it's going to help your inadequacies. It is true. If someone watches porn all the time, and that's all they watch, and they're constantly getting off to it, it can get to the point where they no longer can perform without watching it. Because they have a high expectation of what sex is supposed to be, instead of just enjoying that sexual act with their partner. So you need to remember that that's how that works. Unless you have a partner that is sexually into porn as you are, then you might not have that problem, because acting out sex porn shows or whatever will be one of your fantasies, or one of the things that you do all the time. This is where you need to look into that variety. Do something different. Make up sexual games, role play during sex. Act out something from beginning to end. Like when you get up in the morning, you start that sexual act, and you're playing that whole act out throughout the whole day. So that when you come home from work and then you're continually playing it out, it might just be that simple. Other senses, it may not be. We are going to take the last break of the show here. And when we come back, I will talk about some really good ways for solo sex. Yes, masturbation. Solo sex, I think, sounds pretty cool too. So, totally up to you if you want to get more snack and drink, or if you want to sit there and remain relaxed. Either way, I will meet you back here for more sex talk with Andra after our commercial break.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Andra, where the topic about sex is from the point of view of an older woman. Now, welcome back. This is the last portion of my show. And as promised, I know I brought you down with sexual inadequacies and sexual dysfunctions, but let's pick it back up with solo sex, masturbation. Now, it is always good, but if you do have a sexual inadequacy or dysfunction, do check it out with your doctor. But in most cases, when it comes to sexual inadequacies, a little bit of solo sex may just help that out. Who's to say? So solo sex, less than or equal to partnered sex? We all know having sex with a partner is amazing. There's so much more things that you can do than that you can do by yourself. But solo sex is as, if not more, important as partnered sex. So, yes, it is very important. And it is somewhat equal, if not more, than partnered sex. I mean, you ask yourself what counts. Partnered sex is just really viewed as an expansion. Expansive. More expansive than penis in vagina. Solo sex, you can go a little further with that. It's more than just the rubbing, the nub, the nips, the ribs, the rod, whatever you call it, the penis, the clitoris. There are a lot of sex toys out there. Use them. I'm assured you all have some. This is viewed really as any activity that connects you to that romantic, sensual, erotic, or sexual self part. That counts. It all counts. You're finding who you are, what makes you tick, what turns you on. And with sexual inadequacies, your body may have changed, so you have to, kind of explore to find these new ways to know what's going to turn you on so you can tell your partner. However, obviously, if it does not work and it's still being issued, do seek out sex therapists, medical attention, you name it. That's what they are there for. That's what they're getting paid for. The point of solo sex, come on. It is such an enormous thrill to connect with your body and becoming more confident in your body sexually, and ways to figure out how to experience pleasure, which you can teach your partner, new or old. It's also considered a pain relieving, stress relieving, mood boosting, and sleeping promoting act. So that masturbation comes in handy. So if you're known to fall asleep after, just make sure you're in a place that you can sleep. You just roll over and go to sleep. It has actually been found to be very beneficial for those who are menstruating. And we all know who we are. It's very good for health benefits. It's just overall a good thing. Solo sex helps build you and then to improve your partnered sex. So look at it that way. Now, how do we do this? We all know what masturbation is, but go by these little itty bitty tidbits. Get in the mood to get it on. You're going to seduce yourself. There are different ways and different ideas that people can do this. Just like if you are trying to seduce a partner, things like turning down the lights and lighting candles, massage cream or oil into your, limbs, make and play a sex playlist, porn or not, might just be music. Take deep breaths, and most definitely put your phone on off mode, because that is such a buzzkill, I'm assured. You're going to be in the middle of something, and all of a sudden you hear your phone go off. You don't want that. Obviously, another thing to look into is you're exploring with toys and props. Pick some out that you like. Go to that little amazing store or Adam and Eve store. Go online. There are so many things out there. Matter of fact, there's way too much sex toys out there, I think. Just way too much doing, where it's getting to the point where it becomes that one party sex act. So it's a little scary to think of, but it is leaning that way. Get a vibrator, and they have the reason with the vibrator is obviously you can use your fingers in conjunction or with not, but it moves differently than your fingers do, and I'm sure I don't have to tell you that. You know that. The different speeds on it. You might, before you realized that you were sexually inadequate, you probably just turned it on low. Turn it up. Try a different type. There are endless types of vibrators. They are not just made for your external tidbits there. There are wand vibrators, click vibrators, finger vibrators, vibrating cock rings. They're all there. In conjunction, when you get in with your partner, hey, double the pleasure. And there are some that are, meant to go within your body, which prostate massagers, vibrating butt plugs, G-spot vibrators, that lovely little dildo you can walk around it with all day long in your pants and work it through Bluetooth, or your partner can do it for you. It is something to think about, which I'm assured most people are already doing, and I don't have to say that to think about it. There are, with the folks who have bigger bodies, it is highly recommended that you get the long-handled toys like the wand vibrators and thrusting vibrators. It makes it easier to reach your genitals. You don't have to go, stress yourself just to do it. So they are very good options too. They're now go into the now that you have your vibrating, go into your non-vibrating toys. They work just as well. Vibrators are the end all. Your non-vibratings come in stainless steel, glass wands. These, especially with glass wands or glass dildos, they are pleasurable and very, very pleasurable in ways to which you imply, you're applying these to your erogenous zones. like that G spot, that P spot. We all know what that is. And it's also, especially with the glass ones, playing around with temperature. There are a couple of really good ones out there, and they're made by Najoy. And one of them is the Najoy Pure Wand and Najoy 11. So look them up. If you experience, you want to try out the anal sex portion, but you don't want to do it with your partner, solo sex is the best way to do that. And there are also non-vibrating butt plugs, prostate toys, anal beads that you can do. So, going back to the Bluetooth, you have your remote controlled toys, and these are really good for the individuals who have a limited range of mobility. Because they can be controlled by an app, you are not fumbling around down there to hold it or to do whatever. There are some good apps out there. We Vibe Moxie, and this is a panty vibrator. Then you have the B Vibe rimming plug, and this is for your anal. It's a butt plug. Then we go into sex pillows. You bring in those in as well. Makes me easier as well. There are sex pillows out there that you can buy, or the wedge. Now, one sex pillow is called the Dame pillow, which is very popular. Or you can get the wedge, which is the Liberator wedge, which I believe a lot of people have already heard about. They can help you, really, to help you put you in a position, one, to use your toy, and two, to get the ultimate orgasm for yourself during solo sex. As usually, very important, very much lube up. Use different strokes. For those of us with a clitoris, and clockwise, which I don't believe I have to say anything regarding that. Left, layering your labia over your clitoris to buffer the sensation. You can tap your clitoris. Apply pressure to your mons pubis. So, for those of you with a third leg, the penis, you can do a tornado-like twisting strokes, tapping the head with one hand, moving up and down the shaft with the other. So it's almost like rub your tummy, pat your head there, hence tapping the head. You can double fist your penis. You get a firm hold and twist back and forth. You can yank up with fast strokes, sliding back down more slowly. So you come up fast, bring it down slow. Something that works for you, it helps you get that right orgasm. You can teach this to your partner where they can do it to you. So then we have it where going south, which we're talking the anus. Now, it has half the nerves in the pelvic floor. So obviously, there is sexual sensation there. By filling that, your anus with a butt plug, you're creating pleasurable sensations of, like, most people call it fullness. If you have the penis, and all my male counterparts here, that this anal play actually stimulates your prostate, which is your G spot, or shall we call it P spot. Make sure you have a lot of lube when you're using it, or anal beads or anything like that. Just make sure if you're using your finger that to, loosen up the tension there. Make sure it's really loose, not lubed up, because it'll make it that much easier to get where you need to be. You're going to switch up locations. Obviously, you don't solo play consistently in the bed. Go somewhere in the other room. Go in your car. Be daring. The fact that you know that people are probably know that your car is there, your neighbors are looking or whatever. That thrill turns people on. You can go in the kitchen. You can get food products to work with, ice cubes to play around with your nipples with. Also the temperature in your body. There are things that are in there that you can play with. Even actually just do it right there. Why not? You can go in the shower and do it. Another place which is really fun, the warm water, and the idea of getting naked and all that dirty dirt. It does help your muscles. It helps your body to relax, including your pelvic floor, believe it or not. A lot of waterproof vibrators out there do use them. So they have upgraded. Like I said, another one is to play in public. That's where they go to see how that's going to, people are going to be walking by. It's that thrill of knowing that someone's going to walk by and possibly see you getting off in the car. So you can go on a private beach alone. You go on a roof. Something. Pick somewhere public. There's a little bit of a mitigated risk there. And I think that risk turns a lot of people on. Park and pump. That's cute. Going back to the backseat, you're pulling over into a secluded spot. Pull down your pants. Just stay in your car and go to town. If you want to get in the backseat and do it, go for it. A little bit more room there, so go for it. Always switch up positions, because it is, you might get sensation in different manners, which will work faster. Abracadabra, which is, you're going to get your wand. You get into the missionary style. You can lie on your back and let the toy do the work for you. Why not? Obviously, those of us with a vulva do use lubrication, and especially put it onto the vibrator, because that you can use while you're using the vibrator and you're passing it over your mons pubis and labia before going in it to touch your clit. Is absolutely amazing for you. With the penis end of it, the actual wand, you can actually use a vibrating wand to stimulate your perineum, which is the nerves that are in between your anus, the ones we sit on, which this is why women are able to orgasm a little faster when or in other places, because we sit on ours. Men do not, and they need to stimulate it a little bit there. You can stroke your stomach with your toy, and you can do this where it'll set whatever, like when you are touching other parts of your body, which is sending that little bit of that sensation to that penis or clitoris. Put the vibrator on your stomach, and the weight and the vibration will stimulate itself down. So there are some things that are out there. One, especially for the male, is the Tanga on a cup. and use that with lube. For women, we have the vibrator that's out there, the LaWand Point. Might want to look into some of those. Obviously, solo sex is for the one person ride. So try out some of your favorite positions which you would be in if you had a partner, but use your toy to do it. So, and try and vibrate it and move it around the way that you feel that it's going to mimic that same act. You know, there are so many things. You can solo spoon, stand and stimulate where you're up against the wall or something. Add an onlooker, either watching somebody else having sex or having sex in front of others. It's a turn on. Hold a mirror and watch what you're doing while you masturbate to see how it is. You know, these are things that you can do. You can bring in mutual masturbation where you are doing that right next door to your partner or the person that you are having sex. You're turning each other on that way. There are things to do. Video masturbate for someone. These are things you can do. There are so many out there. Look them up. Do them. Because you need to find out who you are, especially when it comes to sexual inadequacies, trying to build it up again. Because you got to find new ways. However, if it is worse than you thought it was, and the problem is still consistent, do seek medical attention, because it might just have gone over that line into sexual dysfunction. So, with that being said, that is the end of my show. Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Sex Podcast. Hey, tongue-tied again. Must be getting late. So, again, thank you for tuning into the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. As always, practice safe sex, if not for yourself or your partner. I will want to ask that you do subscribe to the show and leave a nice review. It helps me as well as helping us as a whole here at GSMC Podcast Network. Also, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are there. And as always, again, thank you and happy night. So go practice your solo sex. Until next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From sex and relationships to health and wellness, life and happiness, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast.